Thank you for being here. Very exciting for me, I must say.
Yeah.
So you're a consultant,
Mm.
and why should someone hire a consultant?
Ooh, that's a good question.
That's my job today, to ask you great questions.
But first, I just wanted to say that,
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, you and I talk a lot
Yes.
about all sorts of things,
Mm-hmm.
but it's our first time under the bright lights here with our friends Ari and Asha from
Yeah.
Theoris Studios.
Yeah.
And
Do you
so
see the plug-in? Yeah.
it's a real, well, I'm happy to give a plug.
Mm-hmm.
They made us feel very welcome.
Yeah.
And so thanks for inviting me.
Of course.
Um,
So
well,
why
what
would
is
someone
a
hire?
consultant?
Yeah. Well, why would so I will touch on that later, but actually I want to go straight in. Why would someone hire a consultant? Why would I hire you?
I think there are essentially, if you're running a company, you want to run that with a staffing that is for your steady state or your gradual growth, right? But every now and then you need to do something that is not part of that steady state. And so you might need expertise that you don't have in-house. You might need capacity that you don't have in-house. And you might need tools that you don't have in-house. So that's essentially why you bring someone in from the outside.
So okay, if I understand correctly, you're saying consulting is just, and I'm not saying just in like a negative way. It's outsourcing something you don't have.
Yeah, I mean, outsourcing and partnering, you've got to partner, right? Because even if you had a consultant, say, that is good at something, if this is not a good fit with the company, that's not going to do you any good. So it's partnering with someone who can bring something that you do not have in-house.
And so if I don't have legal, so do you see yourself, let's say I don't have legal department in my company and I bring in an attorney, is consultant and attorney the same thing?
In a sense, I mean, mechanistically,
Yeah.
yeah, because you might have a consistent thread of and volume of legal work that justifies having permanent staff to do that. But then you might have specific things that you need to do, like litigation, for instance, or like an unusually large litigation where you would benefit from hiring some outside help.
Okay, I'll challenge your
All right,
statement
please do.
because
Yeah.
I think you're underselling yourself.
Okay.
I know,
but we've only just started.
I know, but I'm saying most people listen for first 5 minutes. If nothing doesn't grab them, they go away. So let's grab them.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're underselling what you do because, and I know it's not your personality, and I know that you're extremely successful and extremely good at what you do, but it's not like getting another service. I think that consultant has another layer that is not like, if I hire, like the example you gave as an attorney, right? It's just very specific. It's like, I have an issue, someone is suing me, I'm suing someone, some conflict, something, right?
Yes.
I take this person, I bring them in, or I use their services. They represent me in a place I don't have an expertise around.
Yes.
And that's it. I think consultants have to almost intertwine in the company to really understand the DNA before they give you the advice, which is not going to happen with attorneys. Attorneys go, this is the law, this situation, let me learn it. So tell me.
Well, why? Why do you think a consultant would need to intertwine into the company?
You're asking me, I'm not a consultant. I don't know.
No, but I'm asking.
No, why? Because in my mind, and maybe I'm wrong, please correct me, because I want to learn what consultants do. In my mind, a consultant is someone who sees blind spots and help company overcome blind spots that are not obvious to the team. Which, if it's an attorney, if it's an accountant, maybe, but something very specific, tax planning, but it's not that.
Yeah, but I think my point would be, you don't have to. So on the one hand, I said you need a good fit, right, with the company you're going to work with. But actually, there's a downside of being too integrated into the company. I mean, there's certainly a way of thinking that the big consulting companies that have the big traditional management consulting companies that have long-term relationships with companies can almost sort of go native. Where they actually stop being able to see things or be able to challenge in the way that you can if you come in and do a specific assignment for a specific reason, providing a specific incremental skill set and capacity that company doesn't have. Now, I think, I mean, this is a good time probably to introduce the difference between what I do primarily with the EHS Partners, with whom I've worked for 20 or so years, and what a traditional management consulting company does.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
The reason I left traditional management consulting,
Which is the big ones, right?
Which
McKinsey
call it
or
the big
one
ones,
of those, you know.
but I mean,
they're famous for that, Bain.
There's a whole industry around it, right? So, you know, some of them provide strategy, and that is providing a service that is beyond perhaps what the internal strategy department would do. So you bring in a team to help you think through a certain problem, which is, okay, can we change direction here? Can we go into new markets, new products, etc.? What I found working in the big consulting companies, although I got a good grounding working in, you know, what we called value-based management, long-term shareholder management, where you're basically pointing everything you do at how do we get, you know, long-term growth of the company, primarily for its investors, but also to pay, you know, the salaries of the people working there.
Yeah.
But the traditional consulting companies tend to have a model where they have to hire out a triangle. You know, so the partner has a relationship, and the partner therefore needs to hire out a senior manager, and then the whole team that comes with that. I moved to EHS primarily because EHS intervenes one time with a company when that company recognizes they want to do something that is a big elevation in their performance. And EHS does not get paid by the hour. It gets paid on the result.
On the result.
On the result.
So if you don't
Completely
I
on the
just want to underline this. So what you're saying is that if you did not succeed in your goals,
Yeah,
you don't get paid.
exactly.
Did it ever happen?
No.
Wow. No, look.
But there's a reason for that.
Okay, yeah. Walk me through it, because that's a very bold statement from a sales perspective. Like basically, money guaranteed, right?
Yeah.
And then you say, no, we never not delivered.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and at its essence, it's because the EHS Partners will never work with the company unless the CEO is prepared to lead the project.
The transformation of that, you know, the project. Yeah.
And companies only hire the EHS Partners, which, by the way, is, if people don't recognize the name, it's because it's sort of this
boutique,
largely unknown company.
Yeah, we're exposing you.
Just very few people, know about.
Yeah. It's like having like a MI5, like
sort of.
Only a few people know about.
Exactly, yeah. And for the most part, it's communicated by word of mouth, because you get a company that's successful, a CEO who's successful, and, you know, they will tend to want to share with other CEOs they meet. When those, you know, those CEOs or those companies are in that zone where they might find it useful to do this kind of work. So that's the primary thing is you don't start the project, or we don't start the project. I'm going to use the term we, because I've worked with them for 25 years, I say. We don't start a project unless we are convinced that the company is engaged, committed, and wants to get the results.
Because you have a lot at stake. Because if you're going to walk into a place that doesn't welcome you, you're not going to get paid.
Yeah.
And you're spending hundreds or thousands of hours on that project. So it makes sense.
So there's a lot of preparation, and there's often, I mean, it can be years in the making.
Okay, so when do you know that they're ready for you? You say, we're not walking in before they're ready for me, okay? Is there like a moment when you walk out of a meeting or a Zoom or whatever it is and say, now they're ready for us?
Yeah.
Or is it like...
Yeah, but I think it's instinctive. And I do remember...
I don't like the word instinctive because I can't do anything with it. It's very mythical, you know, because I don't have your instincts, right? So help me and the people who listen to us understand because generally instinctive is based on wisdom, experience, stuff like that, you know, like what do I do with the word instinctive? You know, so walk me through it.
Well, I suppose if we think of it mechanistically, some time ago, I looked back at what are all the things that make these projects successful. And there were perhaps 13 different things. And all these 13 different things sort of had to come together. So it's not like there's one silver bullet. But if I think about the main ones are, as I said, CEO is prepared to lead personally and put his or herself on the line. to make the project successful. Then obviously the key executives need to be bought in as well. Not necessarily everyone, but key people and others who are sort of on the way to understanding. Some people take longer. Some people take being several weeks into the process to really solidly get on board. But you have a sense.
The blue pill.
Sorry, the blue pill. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We have no blue pill, so we have to do it on the basis of. I'll probably use this word a few times, but the sort of integrity of the work. The integrity of the work comes through. EHS Partners never tells companies what to do, never advises, doesn't come in and do analyses and present reports. EHS Partners has a process that lasts about 18 weeks in which the whole company in parallel works out how it is going to do things for less money, do the same things for less money, reorient those resources to things that will make more money and create more revenues from the products and markets that they're in already. Generally that. So it's operational stuff, but it's across the board. And because everyone's doing it in parallel, there is, that kind of peer pressure, not only peer pressure, but also the notion that we're going to do what's best for the company rather than what typically happens in companies, which is budgeting by business unit.
Yeah.
So
okay.
And there are a few others we should come back to. But
But I want to ask a question about that. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. What I hear is that you're saying, look, the company knows the company better than us. They know what will work and what not going to work.
Yeah.
But we're going to guide them through a methodology that will expose things they can do. Okay, which is a big difference because it seems my experience.
It's completely different.
Yeah, big consulting companies there's almost like this arrogance, right? And of course they're hiring the top people and Ivy League and the whole thing, and they come and saying like, we know better. Let me show you how you can change the process or change the product, whatever it is. You're saying no, you're the expert. I'm agnostic to some degree, but I can walk you through a process to sharpen your own vision about your own company.
Yeah, I mean, and look, there is value to what all those traditional management consulting companies are doing. Otherwise, they wouldn't exist.
Yeah.
So I'm not refuting that for a moment. I'm just saying that when you use the term consultant and apply it to what I've been doing for the last 25 years with EHS Partners, it doesn't match up because it's a very different kind of process. Because what we're doing is essentially we're going in as a team and we are guiding the line managers through a process that allows them to develop a portfolio of ideas for change that are worth X amount of additional profit for the company. And they present those ideas themselves to the executive team.
And is the executive team you or the executive team is their own?
No, the company's executive team.
Yeah.
So, and we are off at the sides, we're alongside, we are constantly, managing the process, tie-breaking, coaching, looking for opportunities, looking for, anything that other people might not see. But we never say, hey, this is what you should do.
Yeah, it sounds.
We encourage the line managers to develop their own ideas with their teams. And it's very powerful. And there's a fundamental reason for that because most management consulting fails on implementation. Reports gathered in the days when we had paper. Reports gathered dust. Often projects were done almost as cover for another decision, so it was kind of political. There's no point in being political with our process because essentially the whole company is coming up with this 25 to 35% or whatever increase in operating income through these practical ideas that they are buying into and they are presenting and everyone's signing off on again across business units. So you might have one business unit taking some cost in order to increase some profit in another business unit, which typically doesn't happen.
Yeah, so you're saying the implementation is one of the biggest challenges.
Well, implementation is typically the failure, and it's a failure because if you have someone from the outside come in and tell you what to do, then you're way less likely to implement it than if you came up with the ideas yourself.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. When I ran a public company, we were forced by the board to borrow a third-party large consulting company.
Yeah.
And they studied us for a few weeks, a few months, whatever it was, and then they came up with new procedures. And I can tell you that those books or whatever, the files,
Yeah.
were collecting dust.
Yeah, exactly.
No one implemented them. After they left, we did a check. Okay, we look good for the board and
Yeah.
but it was the implementation that was not. And you think because it didn't come naturally from us, it's you guys do the process internally, and
what I'm thinking is somewhat mischievously, but what I'm thinking is that at the end of the 18 weeks or whatever it is, I'm sure our clients breathe a huge sigh of relief.
Well,
that they finish and we're gone.
Sounds,
but there's a difference, which is that they're breathing a huge sigh of relief because they've been through a very intense process, and we've been there, with them all the way. But now they're going to get on and implement over the next 18 months to 2 years. Whereas you were breathing a huge sigh of relief because the bit of work had been done and you could then put it on one side and forget about it.
Yeah.
It's very different.
And actually, I wanted to implement because it made a lot of sense. There were really smart people working on that.
Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But my team were not interested. There wasn't a stake there. Like my team, I was trying to as the CEO, I was trying to push them to use those new procedures, and no one used it. So after a while, it kind of fizzled because I was busy. Everybody's busy, and I think it sounds to me like the implementation comes. There's like an internal hunger that you develop through the process that they want to implement that, right?
Yeah.
How is there another team that comes in and implement what you guys do? They do naturally.
Well, we support the implementation with
even after the 18
tools if necessary.
Okay.
Yeah. No, we have always, stayed alongside a company as long as they want us to stay alongside. So we never abandon anyone, but fundamentally, we're doing one project for them. And then we see it through to the very end with some skeleton cover, if you like, and certainly the partners remain involved. Because, if you think about the components of successful implementation, they are the people themselves coming up with ideas and working out what they're worth, what it's going to take to implement them, how practical it is, can we do all this in a certain amount of time? But it's also then, building a system for managing and measuring that and tracking so you can see, where you are, and across the company you can see where everyone is. That's just as important as during that first 18 weeks of analysis and development of ideas that you all need to be working in parallel and tracking progress. So you're tracking progress again. You still have, some structure from the analytical phase of the project that's overseeing it, but it's way more about the different parts of the organization implementing the ideas they wanted to do.
Okay, so when you connect with a company, what do you sell them? Do you sell tools? Do you sell the vision? Do you sell the results? If you sit with a CEO, let's say the CEO heard about you or whatever, or think that there's something missing, right? That they want to kind of work on. When they walk out of the sales meeting, and I'm sure it's an ongoing because it's a long process, probably very expensive also, but what do you actually sell them? What do they see that is going to be in their lives, in the company's life, in the end of the process? Is it the vision? Is it the tools?
Well, it's not I wouldn't say it's a vision, at least in the typical sense in which that term would be used. I think it's the strong conviction that this is a credible way to achieve a big jump in performance.
Okay. So the jump in performance is the product. Look, if you work with us, there will be a jump in performance. That's what the person
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and that's based on X number of 20 projects.
Yes.
Delivering those kinds of results. So, there's a proven track record. It's it's a proven track record. And part of the reason why it can be proven is because everything is measured in terms of essentially dollars to the bottom line, and we can come back to that. It's a bit more nuanced than that, but you can measure it in terms of impact to the bottom line. And so we know that the projects we've done have developed X amount of value of ideas. We have seen them implemented over 18 months to 2 years. We know what the implementation rates are, and we can speak to that as fact.
Yeah. Okay. So one of the things I see in companies is that they say they have a commitment, they get very excited about it, inspired, excited, thrilled. And then when it comes to doing the work, they deliver shorted of actually, again, actions. Maybe commitment, they say we're very committed, right? So even though you work with very large corporations, right? I don't know if you're allowed to share, but what's the size of, like, what's the minimal size the company got to have in revenues or employees to work with you guys? And again, if you, I'm going to ask the question, you don't have to answer. But it's very large companies, right? You don't do...
Well, but, billion, $750 million.
Yeah, billion, annual.
And obviously much bigger.
Yes, okay, so those are really large companies, right? You tell me if I'm wrong. It's maybe very different from small companies like the one I'm used to.
Yeah.
But people are like, yes, let's do it. And I'm excited. And then when it actually comes to do the work, there's a gap there, sometimes bigger than a big gap.
Yes.
I'm assuming it happens in the companies too, because the culture clashes with the new way of the introduction of new ideas, new procedures, new tools that you're introducing, right?
Yeah.
How do you build a bridge over those two?
Well, I mean, the fundamental thing, I mean, I've always thought that this is one of the most powerful things about the process, is that when a company signs up to work with EHS Partners, it signs up to a remuneration model that says it will pay X% of the agreed value of all of the ideas to us. Now,
that's a big stake for them.
No, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. But you think about it. How much, at least if there's integrity, what a great incentive that is to implement everything and maybe more. It's a statement of faith as well.
No, this is extraordinary. Let me just repeat it again, because I think some people might miss it.
Yeah.
So you're saying, look, I'm just throwing a number, okay? I will be able to increase your sales by, $200 million.
Or your profit.
Your profits.
Your operating profit.
Okay, your operating profits. And based on that, that's how we tailor how much our fees are going to be.
Exactly.
Now, if you don't do the work and you hit... half of it, that's your problem. But if you do 30, like if you go 150% on it, then good for you, right? Yeah. That's amazing. Okay.
But if you've got anything about you, right, as a company, you're going to say, hey, we've done all this work. We've come up with all these ideas. They are worth a big impact to our company. Everyone is on board. Well, everyone's engaged in the process, and now we are going to implement.
Okay, good.
That.
But okay, so
because I remember actually. Yeah. I remember working with an insurance company. All-America doesn't exist anymore, in Massachusetts, and I remember the CEO. This is my first project. I remember the CEO saying, "Now we've been through all the hard work, the grind, all this blood, sweat, and tears to get here. We are going to implement everything."
Yes,
that's exactly the.
Yeah,
but you think of the engagement.
Trees, they sing fruit on the. It's stupid not to pick the fruits of your labor. Okay, but there are.
It doesn't always happen. It's very rare.
So first, I want to hear what happens when it's not happening. Okay, but before that, all well and done, right? Great. The reality is, some companies are struggling because of a culture. A CEO comes in, wants to change the culture, and even though he or she are extremely committed, it doesn't turn out because fundamentally it's been around a particular way so long. We had Brandon last time on the podcast, and he's talked about how he comes into to do a turnaround.
Yeah.
And he talks about change the culture, paint the walls. So sometimes the CEO, even the management, the top, the C-level management are very committed. And we're going to spend all this money we're putting our neck here, but then the culture is stronger than all of us in many times. How do you deal with it? I mean, how do you?
Well, I mean, first of all, so let's try and break it down. So what do you think culture is?
I think culture is the history of the, if I had to explain what culture is, I would say it's the history of a company implemented in many, many ways. So from the amount of hours you work to the way you dress, to the way you interact, your marketing, your innovation, the R&D department, all that stuff. That's, but it's all based on history.
Yeah. So I would offer something that's sort of consistent with that, but slightly different. I think it's very simply, it's the aggregate of all the behaviors that you see
Yes.
in a corporation. And that may be for lots of different reasons, but that's essentially what it is. And of course, you can drive, there are a number of ways in which you can drive behavior. You can drive it through leadership, you can drive it through, but mostly through, what you measure and manage and incentivize people for doing.
So if you
and also put them on the line.
So if you change the incentive and you change the accountability, you will get a shift in culture.
Yeah.
That's it's so great.
I mean, it's not as easy as that, right?
I know, but this is so great.
Let's start from there.
Here's what I was saying.
Rather than getting all highfalutin about culture change and stuff like that.
Well, here's what came to mind for me. There's many in politics, and you and I both like politics.
Yeah. Too much, probably.
Yeah. But in politics, there's sometimes you'll have someone like Obama, like Trump, who come and say, I'm going to do a fundamental change, right? And when you look at Obama's, from my perspective, a lot of talking, some change, but not as much as he wanted to.
Completely
and
agree.
I would say Trump, to some degree, will be the same. I mean, he's much more aggressive. But I think, in my 5 cents about is the institution called presidency is much more limited than the politician who's running for the presidency. Okay.
Well, that's built into the
exactly
into American politics. Right?
Yes, but that's what came to mind, right? So I'm thinking if you came to a company, to the White House or whatever, and we change the incentives. Right?
Yeah.
And the accountability, you'll see a change in culture.
Fundamentally.
Yes.
You might have to work. I mean, you might have to work on
You work very hard.
it,
You say it's 18 weeks of crazy work, right?
Yeah. But I think I can't think of any places I've worked where they've had to, fundamentally change the incentive system in order to make the project work. I suspect that if you were in a company where there really was no accountability, and I've worked.
Is it companies without accountability? I mean, businesses are here to make money. I mean, companies. It's not like a non-for-profit or government where you can just keep on spending money.
No.
Companies that do not make money, after a while they close down, right?
Well,
1 year or 2 years.
Yeah, but interestingly, and it may not be directly relevant to sort of solving this, but interestingly, I've worked with a much smaller company a long time ago that I found where I just found this sense that people did not feel like they were on the line.
What do you mean?
Well,
what do we say on the line? What do you mean?
Because because once a company is beyond a certain size, right, there's a certain amount of protection. You're in it. You have a job. You're getting paid.
Yeah.
What do you care?
So you think that the team were not committed to the process?
Well, they were committed to the process to a certain degree.
Yeah,
but you could just feel that they didn't feel as accountable for the success on behalf of the company.
Whose fault is it? Is it you guys did not get them enough excited, enrolled, thrilled about the process? Is it came from the CEO that did not say, look, either this way or the highway? You're either going to implement or you'll be gone. What did it? Because I think it's a privilege to say, well, I'm not really, I'm secure. No, if someone gave you the feeling of security or the illusion of security for you to say, I'm not going to do this process, so I'm going to do 80% because I don't really believe in it.
Yeah. Well, an 80% could get you a decent result, right? Yes. I mean, the company I'm thinking of had a decent result and the CEO was definitely very committed to it. I'm just observing that, my sense was that these people were not didn't feel themselves to be on the line, even though even though they were a smaller company than, say, Bank of America, for instance.
That's one of your projects, you're saying?
When we worked with them in 2011 and 2012.
Oh, that's right after the crisis, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And, externally, they were having some problems. Bank of America was not people's, favorite bank, and partly because they had to buy countrywide, which had been involved in some pretty questionable things. But what I found, I just found it extraordinary working on that project. First of all, you had a CEO, Brian Moynihan, who is all substance and no packaging. He knows every part of the business. He's not a, slick, flamboyant, big personality, in the sort of media sense of it. But I remember him at the beginning of the process standing up. Now, he had the benefit of having done something similar with older members of the firm, in the past. So he sort of understood it better.
Yeah.
But he'd really internalized it, and he'd really internalized the need for it. And when we got together, all the leaders of the company to show them how the process worked, he came and spent an hour. And not only did he talk about it, but he, what I call people to the mat, in judo terms.
Yeah.
He called on people who were in the room and said,
like, "This
ask
is
me
the
a
way
question. Ask me a
go.
question.
Yeah.
What do you think about such and such?" And he made sure that people felt like, I was really inspiring. It was inspiring.
Yeah.
And what it did was it acknowledged people's right to have doubts, to have hesitation, to think, what's this all about? But then also forced them to confront that and to ask questions and give him the opportunity to talk about it. And it was just the most amazing project. Now, this is a company of 150,000? I'm not sure, I can't remember how many exactly, but it's a huge company. But the level of accountability I found in that company with the people I worked with was extraordinary. And so it's very interesting. Obviously there's a lot more to culture than simply incentives.
Yeah. Okay, so I have a question, then I want to move to something else.
Yeah.
My favorite thing to talk about is failure. So you said exactly. You said in the beginning where we have not, we're successful, and there's a lot at stake, right? That's why we make it successful. Internally, did you ever experience failing with a particular member of your team?
Yeah. Yeah, but
what makes them fail? What make them fail?
Well, maybe they don't gel with the clients they're working with. It's quite rare. It's rare for that to happen. And I've never seen it happen in the sense that it compromised the team. But obviously, if we ended up with someone who wasn't a very good match or was going, left field.
How do you deal with it?
Well, we deal with it because it's a collegiate team.
Yeah, but
you might have to move. You might have to move someone out. And
okay, so let's say you put together a team of, I'm just saying, 8 people, and one of them is just, he or she are upset, or they don't jive, or it's the wrong team for them, or they think this is BS, and they're so busy with the regular work. Why are you adding more work for me?
Oh no, I'm talking about the EHS team.
No, I'm talking about you walk into a company.
Oh no, we work with the line managers, whoever they are.
With what do you work with?
With the line managers.
Okay.
So we work with so we're basically working, the way it's structured is there's a team that for instance, let's talk about me. I'm working with a segment of a big company, and I have some relationship with the executive in charge of that. The relationship with the executive is mostly at the level of the partners, but I have a relationship because I might need at some point to feed back to him or her something that would be beneficial to the process moving forward. But I am working with a team of dedicated people
How many people
as intermediaries. So I might be working with 4 people.
Oh, that's
who
it. Wow.
Who are dedicated to the project.
Yeah.
But then
under them,
between us, we are working with 10 managers of business units.
Yeah.
And they're the people who are ultimately responsible, as I said at the beginning, for coming up with all the ideas for improvement in their area.
Yeah. And what if one of those 4 is just failing? Either they fail because they're not committed, or they're really committed, but there's something in the way, and you keep on working and you're seeing the clock ticking because you have 18 months, right?
Yeah.
So you're probably also under
we've
pressure.
got 18 weeks.
18 weeks,
in the
sorry.
first,
18 weeks,
yeah.
I apologize. 18 weeks. You're also under the gun because you're coming for very intense, very short period of time.
Yeah.
And you see it's 3rd week, 4th week, and you are not getting the results. What do you do?
Well, so, and are you asking this because you're curious about sort of
failing,
managing performance in
yes.
Well, look, as we spoke about, I think briefly yesterday, I see.
But I wasn't on the podcast.
No, exactly. No, but I see failure as more of a sort of engineering term. Systems fail. A human body might fail if it tried to do a marathon tomorrow without any training, right? Elastic bands fail when you stretch them so far.
Yeah.
But for the most part, what you're looking for is the best possible performance the best possible performance from anyone, right? So I'm not sure that it's necessarily makes sense to just think of it as success and failure. You may get, relationships that aren't performing as well as ones that are. But to come to your point, to your question, well, if I look to my own experience, for instance, I typically find, and I believe this for a long time, that people should do what they're strongest at and enjoy doing, regardless of their job description, right? So there are very few people who are good at doing everything.
I don't know anyone. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So it makes way more sense and gives ourselves a break if we just go, I recognize the things I'm really good at. I recognize the things I'm not good at. And so I'm going to try and focus on the things I'm good at and let someone else do the things I'm not good at. So I quite often have, really push people to pair up so that their capacity,
the strength or the weaknesses implement
exactly,
complements.
Exactly. Yeah. So I remember in a bank in Charlotte, I worked with, had two both brilliant guys, but very, one of them was very good at being straight down the line, agendas, keeping everything on time, being very succinct, and the other had a lot more knowledge of the business, the particular part of the business that was very important to us to get at. And if they split down and one took responsibility for some groups and the other took responsibility for other groups, then that didn't work as well as having them work together, and one's the lead here on this kind of thing and then the other one's the lead here on this kind of thing. So I think putting together complementary people is really important. Coaching people.
What do you tell them?
Well, I just say,
you make it real.
How's it going?
I understand, but here's where I'm kind of stuck a little bit. Okay. I hear the methodology clear. I hear the commitment, your abilities. You have an extraordinary record of success. That's all. But then I look at my life. Maybe you're surrounded only by successful people who fail rarely, and if they fail, they match with the person who, compliment them and they move on. But my experience of life is very different. My experience with people I work with is that they fail all the time. That they, I'm looking for, and maybe there isn't one. I'm looking in your interact, because you interact with humans. And there's conversation that is empowering. There's conversations that people like, I don't know how to do it, or I know how to do it better than the other person. And why is they are my boss, and I know better. If I was his or her position, I would do a better job. All those things that we deal with as coaches, advisors, consultants, all the time. There's a moment when someone hits a wall. Okay.
Well, not always. But see, you work a lot more with small businesses.
Yes.
Right? You work a lot more with entrepreneurs. So the notion of success and failure is perhaps more germane to that. But I don't tend to use the term failure. I think people perform at lots of different levels. And the thing is to try to get them doing something that they're good at. And if they aren't good at doing other things, then you fill that in with someone else. Maybe I fill in myself. I mean, and this is perhaps a good example. So in this structure we're talking about, I have a certain role as the external partner. I'm not necessarily supposed to do analysis for a business unit. I'm not necessarily supposed to do...
That's not your strength.
Directly. No, it's not about the strength. It's about, that's not my role. I will tend, the model is for me to operate through the intermediary team, although that is something that stages upwards. So at the beginning, I'm very hands-on and very direct, and then gradually I try to, back off and do other things. But I'm going to modulate depending. I mean, so I have a lot of capacity because I've done this a lot. I understand the process, and I wouldn't be doing it unless I had a strong capacity for it. So it's relatively easy for me if there's a hole somewhere to go, ooh, I need to jump in and plug that hole and try to do it cooperatively, working with people.
So you find, kind of, as you're working with people, you say, here's what I think is missing. I'm going to plug in something that will fill that hole, fill that need, right?
Yeah.
And you know how to fill that need because you meet people in other capacity. You say, I think this woman is really good with X. I'm going to bring her to this team. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
And actually, but it reminds me of, and every now and then you have to kind of put your foot down.
What, do you fire them?
Well, no,
You're saying it in a very British way. I want the American New York way. I'm like, you fire their ass?
No.
Do you kick them out? Do you call them to the principal's office? What do you do?
It's always a possibility that that's something you have to do. But I mean, that's probably the last thing you want to choose is getting rid of someone, right? Because as I said, everyone has capacity. And so if you can put them in the right situations, they can shine. But from a process perspective, I do remember working in South America, and
again, you don't have to throw anyone under the bus.
No, I'm not going to know. But I was just working in South America, and the model they had was, the internal consulting team has to manage everything, and actually
micromanage almost,
almost micromanage, and so they were going through the list of projects, validating them all before sending them back to the line managers. In the meantime, the line manager's waiting. Going, well, what do we do next? Well, our process doesn't have time for that. I mean, you need to be making progress every week.
Yeah.
And, first of all, I sort of noticed it and went, what's going on here? And then, a day later, it was still happening, despite the fact I'd said to them, hey, come on. And there was that moment where I think I probably slammed the table and said, guys, this does not work. You now need tonight to get these out to the groups and get them working.
And they did it.
It's not you don't own any of this.
Yeah.
But there was a mindset there. I mean, they were doing good work as far as they were concerned. And they were doing, good work as far as the way in which they'd been working before was concerned. But it wasn't appropriate to the process, and they wouldn't have seen that unless I'd been there.
Yeah. And I hear something, additional thing. I hear there's a true trust in the process. And you said, no, this is not how things work.
Yeah.
This is how we do things. And I have the dozens of years to prove that our system is working.
Yeah.
So you got to trust me.
Yeah.
Whether you'd like it, you don't like it.
It's how I bring value.
Yeah. Which is really good, because one of the challenges, people will reach out to me and say, oh, I want coaching. I was like, do you want advice or you want coaching?
You don't like coaching people anyway, do you?
I don't like to coaching because I find one of the reasons I don't like coaching is because there's two things. Not like we're turning the mic on me, but two things. One is people confuse psychology with coaching.
Yeah.
After a while, you're calling to someone.
You mean therapy?
Therapy. Like to vent or something. That's not coaching. And second thing is people don't really like to be coached. People like to get a good advice. And if they agree with the advice, they're like, that was a great coaching. If they don't, they don't do it, or they do half of it. And I think a true coach, when I think for sport coaching, if I tell you to push-ups and you're a chess player, okay, you don't go like, well, why is chess related to, push-ups? No, I'm your coach. Like, you don't have to take me as a coach.
Yeah.
But if you took me as a coach and I have the resume or the history to prove that I'm a great coach, then if I tell you to do push-ups, you do push-ups.
Yeah,
you don't ask me
Absolutely.
And I think that's the example you gave. You're like, look, I know what needs to be done. If you don't send it out tonight, you got to either trust me or don't trust me. I still want that out tonight for the line managers. And
I tried to set that up at the beginning, with everyone in the client team, what I'm able to do for them by virtue of my experience.
Yeah.
And I'm very deliberately, I don't have the answers vis-a-vis your business unit or your business, but I do know
the process,
how to use the process to get you the best result.
Yeah, and that I think that's the biggest one. One of the biggest thing I'm taking out of this conversation is that the fundamental key to success, or one of the fundamental keys, is that the team must know value of the process and align themselves in uncomfortable moments and in comfortable moments with the process.
Yeah.
Surrender to the process to some degree.
Exactly.
That's a critical thing. Okay.
And that's not easy.
No, of course not.
It's definitely not easy.
In life, it's
and
not
we say all the time, trust the process, and people roll their eyes.
Exactly, of course. No,
and they'll continue doing that.
And you have it easier. I'll tell you have it easier because you have history of success.
Yeah.
So when it's kind of like when you walk into the room and say, "This is the person who, won those awards," and people are like, "Oh, wow, he's an expert already." Therefore, my listening to him, the way I'm going to take his advice, his guidance is different because you guys have a huge resume.
Yeah.
Well,
I think also that the process and the approach has integrity, and that integrity is woven into it, and I think it becomes more and more evident to people once they are in it.
They already see it in the product. They don't have to wait for the finishing line to see the result. They're already seeing that there's a...
I mean, of course, they're always going to have doubts, right? Because they don't know it all inside out. But I think the way it gets delivered, it has integrity. Things match together. It resonates.
Okay, I can go down that rabbit hole,
but
I won't because I want to go a different direction. Okay, the companies I work with, you have the privilege, the rights, the history, whatever it is, to work with a company that is so successful, so big. You said at least $1 billion or more a year of revenues net.
Generally,
net
I think,
gross or whatever the numbers, but it's big companies. That's the bottom line.
Generally.
Okay? Let's talk about this small company. If I listen to this podcast and I run a small business, I run a coffee shop, I run a factory, I run a law firm, I don't have the ability to go to you guys and say, here's the very thick, a lot of zeros after the number.
Yeah.
What do I do? Should I bring consultants in? Is there a way to do it internally? What advice, what from your experience, because I know you also love entrepreneurship and you and I worked together on my company when I had it, and my company was by far smaller. Tell me about the world of a smaller company. What do they do if they see that there's something, to start the conversation we started earlier, like in the beginning, they see something is missing, something that in the performance, in their abilities, in the team.
Yeah. Well, can we talk about your experience with working with me?
Sure.
Like how was that? How did that occur for you in terms of what I was able to bring?
Well, I think that the biggest thing that there's a few things. First of all, my team, because what my experience is, and I may be wrong, but my experience is when we work together is that you listen to middle management more than to the top. There was kind of a sense of, you came into the room saying middle management who are hands-on between the people in the field and the C-level, let's say, sometimes know the answers better than the people in the
probably always.
Always. Okay, perfect. Okay, so I think
it.
one of the things, one was fascinating to me to hear things I did not hear from my team on the 360 or feedback or exit interviews or whatever. Like, and I used to be very involved in my...
You were,
But even so, I think bringing you and giving them a stage to really state their concerns, their challenges, open the space.
Yeah.
Okay, that's one thing, right?
Yeah.
And then I think the other thing was holding a very tight demand for implementation of their realizations.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll say it in maybe a simpler way. Okay, I mean, you get it, but if someone pointed to something, you did not satisfy by them just pointing to, here's the problem. You demanded the additional steps to say, okay, what would you do to solve it?
Yes.
And then, if I remember correctly, it's been a few years, you put it aside, and then you came back to when everybody else in other departments pointed to the problem and said, here's the problems you're dealing with. Now let's find the solution for you, but it has to be in correlation and in partnership with that problem of that person and that person. And that was the kind of the net we created, a new net created, connecting the departments.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's go back to...
Well, can I...
please.
And so... just one example, which is slightly different from that, but I have always loved that opportunity to go into a small company and get to know people and find out and be interested in what they're doing and what the challenges are, and trying to create an ambiance of, we're trying to help everyone. We're trying to make it better and more effective for everyone here, so that it's not threatening. Obviously, that's counterproductive. And I have had a situation where I have a dear friend in France who runs a bespoke carpet manufacturer. I spent a day in the atelier talking to people. And I was able the next morning to just sit down with her at breakfast time and go, okay, here's what you should do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because, we have a very long relationship and trust. And that worked for her because she was looking for answers about, well, how do I deal with this? And I mean, what we did was obviously more collaborative with the managers, which is tends to be more powerful. Interestingly, I was noticing the other day, she was telling me about how she now has someone coaching her, and I found I was a bit jealous because I'm thinking, well, what about all the stuff we did together?
Yes.
But it was brilliant in the moment, when you've got that kind of trust and you're just able to and you get introduced to people in the company and you can chat with them and all these things they tell you, and it's great to be that kind of intermediary.
Okay, so but
it's more likely what we did with
but I want to give a tool. I want to give a tip, a tool, whatever advice here for people who someone listened to this conversation and is saying, "Look, I know that there's a problem."
Yeah.
Because by the way, there's no company with no problems. I mean, every company has. Maybe you're going through a period when you're flying high, but it's just a period.
Yeah.
It's not the natural state of a company. When you expand. It requires forces to work internally and externally, right? So they say, okay, how do I do it? Like, what do I do? Like, do I find a business coach? How can someone afford a similar or a process that you guys do for very large companies? Because they can't afford you.
No, well, you could afford me.
I can, but I paid for 30 years of friendship. So it's a very priceless.
You probably paid me in wine, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I mean, obviously there are people out there who, have experience in.
Okay, so I'm going to make it very specific. Kind of stuff. You're taking a flight.
Yeah.
And you're sitting next to someone in the lounge or whatever on the way to the flight. And they ask you what you do and you tell them very briefly. And they say, I own 3 coffee shops and I would love someone to come in and help me.
Yeah.
And they don't know you. They can't afford someone on your scale or very large companies. Or what do they do? How do they start the process of finding the blind spots or the processes that they don't have in their experience of running a company?
Yeah. Okay. Well, look, I think one should always start internally. And this gets to maybe some aspect of culture that you were talking about. If we start with the idea that regardless of job description, you don't have to be good at everything. And you really, you focus on finding out, and acknowledging and understanding what people are good at, what they're not good at, and organizing what there is to do based on that. That's a very good start and I'm thinking, so it kind of demystifies. No longer are you having to, I've got to defend my ego. I've got my position to think of. I need to pretend that, I'm good at all these things. No, you're not. So let's put the company first. Let's put the whole company first rather than, your little bit of it, because unless we can grow the overall pie, it doesn't really matter how we slice it, right?
Yes.
It's like in politics now. There's one side of politics that's completely focused on how do we slice the pie, but they're not much good if it's reducing in size.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So kind of demystifying in that sense. And I remember, just as an anecdote, a long time ago, I worked with a finance department in, actually it was at Novo Nordisk,
their pharmaceutical.
Yeah, pharmaceuticals company. And
before they became one of the largest.
Yeah,
in the world.
No, exactly. Yeah. Brilliant company.
Yeah, really.
In Copenhagen. Yeah, loved them.
Yeah.
And we did a thing called Belbin team roles. Now, Belbin is I don't know how old it is, decades old, but it's this idea that in any leadership team, you need to have a combination of certain types of personality. You need a chair, you need someone who's a driver, you need someone who's the cooperative, you need an executor. What this team didn't have, a finance team, was a completer finisher. In other words, the person to cross the T's and dot the I's.
Yeah.
In a finance team. In a finance team.
So natural. Like generally, that's the natural. Like most of them will be that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the point is, it was a tool that we used to kind of demystify the whole thing and get people understanding amongst each other who everyone really was, rather than who they were pretending to be.
Okay, so I want to go back to tangible, right? So here's what I hear. I'm going to repeat what you said, in my understanding, correct me or add to it. If I run a business and I'm interested in growing it and seeing my blind spots, or and I know there's issues because every company has issues.
Yeah.
The first thing, or one of the first thing I would do, is I would look at my entire team, whether it's 3 people or 30 people, and say, let's look at what people are strong at. And what's missing, instead of keep on working on their weakest link, maybe we can add additional link to support them so they can do better with what they're doing, and have support from someone who's good with something else.
Yes.
That's the first thing to do.
Yeah, or ideally do it with them. And the reason you can do it with them is because you're taking time every week to think about performance improvement. So the analogy I would use is if you're in a cycling race and your tire is punctured and losing air, you're not just going to keep on cycling. You're going to stop and fix it. So I think, or if you're, the crank is getting isn't moving well, you're going to maintain it. So I think a lot of companies get so understandably, sucked into what there is to do every day that they don't actually take time out to go, all right, how are we doing? Where are we not performing as well as we can do?
Yeah, that's a very good point. That's a very good point. I want to just underline. Harvard speaks often, HBS speaks often about managers now are so busy, they don't have time to develop that. Let's pause and think about it, because they're so busy with doing, and they never have a chance to
most of it's wasted.
Yeah, and then because
actually, if you think about
the
the world
culture's like, I got to be busy. Something you have to have to meditate or whatever. The business portion of, like, you have to pause and say, and it's exactly like you keep on riding with a flat. Versus actually stopping and
Well, when you think about, just across society, how much of our time is just wasted? It's just, if I think about the process we were talking about earlier on, and there's a whole sequence of things that you do when you look at activities. One is, do we even need to do that activity at all, or is it now defunct? And then the next one is, well, is this activity being caused by something else being out of whack? So you have a process that's just not working, and it's creating other kinds, it's creating wasteful activity. If you get it right first time, then you could take that secondary activity away. And it goes on and on and on. So you just have to kind of take a step back and realize that being the tortoise will get you there more quickly.
Slow and steady wins the race.
There's nothing wrong with running fast, right? But being in a rush, that doesn't really work because that's a lot of wasted.
Okay, so one tool is you stop and you say, here's my team, here's what in a dialogue with them or with the individuals, you go like, okay, well, here's what you're good at, and then what are you missing? What are you not working for you that we can bring a person or a tool, something to make, so you don't have to keep on carrying something you're really weak at, right?
Yeah, right.
Can you give me another one?
Well, and by the way, I would say before that, just create, and maybe that's part of a way of doing it, but creating it's not going to work in a dog-eat-dog kind of environment, right? Like International Management Group that managed talent in the UK back in the 80s, 90s. Maybe it's still around, but I just remember a friend of mine wouldn't go on holiday, wouldn't go on vacation because someone else would nick his clients. It's not going to work, I don't think, in an environment like that, but in an environment where you're constantly having conversations about how do we make this as successful as possible for all of us. And I think probably as CEO, and I think you and I become more aware of, maybe it's because we're getting older, but once you acknowledge that you have a certain capacity yourself, you can start to be generous with other people.
Yes.
The
ego doesn't sit in the way.
Have them succeed. And then they'll be generous with others. And so I think, creating that kind of dialogue where we're about what's good for the company rather than what's good for me in my little bit. And in your company, you came across this, people working off on the side on their own self-interest.
Oh, of course.
Despite your best efforts to get everyone to gel together.
Yeah. And by the way, one of my conclusions from failing in that area is that you should eliminate those people in your company as soon as possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because what I did is I convinced myself that they're so good at one thing that I was like, I ignored their egocentric behavior, the cutthroat behavior to serve themselves, because like he is so good at managing this one. I'm just going to tolerate it. And looking back, I should have sent them home. Because the long-term damage is by far more larger. It amplifies
the problem. But at the time, you didn't have the same perspective around time.
Of course, absolutely.
Well, so I think, this points to something which is absolutely crucial: recruitment.
Yes.
I mean, we recruit. First of all, you don't want to fire someone because you know how hard it is to then find someone else, right? So you're always up against that. But I think that, recruitment is the most fundamental thing you can possibly do. And it's worth spending the time to do it right. I don't know how much time, but it's probably way more time than most people are spending. And I suspect that nowadays the kind of filters for recruitment aren't necessarily promoting or pushing forward the right people, because actually it's state of mind, it's attitude, it's what we might have called emotional intelligence in the past, empathy, desire to cooperate as well as to drive. That's what we're looking for generally, rather than just technical expertise or contacts or whatever it might be. Obviously, it varies depending. But I would say, so that would be my second thing, is spend a lot of time on recruitment. And by the way, and this is fundamental, is grow more slowly, if that's what it takes.
Oh, I mean, say that to a hungry entrepreneur.
I know. Yeah, and you have the bills to pay, right? But
not only bills. Look, for me, I know that was pure greed.
You love the deal.
I love the deal. I love, pushing. I love growing, and I paid for it a big price, huge price. But I'm saying it was always about growth, and we don't have.
It was the timing, but it was the timing that got, what you paid for it. It was the timing that got out of whack.
Yeah.
There was lots of good stuff going on. There was lots of profit to be gained, but the timing went out.
Yeah, I would say even if you're the best surfer in the world, if a tsunami comes around, doesn't matter, Okay, but because we're running out of time, and I want to cover two things. Okay, so I'm going to pause now, and literally I can spend an hour going down this one.
But can I just quickly,
please?
Okay, so I always use the example of when Idi Amin came to power in Uganda, kicked out a bunch of British Asians. They came to the UK. They didn't leverage. They didn't get the investment capital. They used what they had to buy or rent one corner store, and they ran it as a family, and they kept all the money. And then maybe they bought it, and then they ran it again, and they kept all the money, and then they bought another one. 20 years later, they were millionaires.
Exactly.
A millionaire was a lot in those days.
There's a good book. I don't know if you know The Millionaire Next Door. Yeah, it's an old book I read a long time ago, but it's about exactly this. Like
organic.
Organically.
Organic is almost always better.
I think that's one of the tug of wars, the biggest one.
Of course it is,
especially in today's world when it's TikTok and social media, and it's instant, and everybody wants to own crypto and become multimillionaires overnight. And I keep on talking to younger people. I work with a lot of young people, and I said, I know I have bad news for you. 99.9999% of people will not become multimillionaires in their 20s. And they have such a hard time hearing it.
Oh, really?
Because it's all about but I saw on Instagram this guy who's driving a Bentley now, and he's 28 because he invests in crypto, or he did this thing. It's really, it's.
Well, we're externally focused, right?
Exactly.
Get internally focused. And by the way, the only reason to bring in venture capital is if they have expertise that you don't have, right?
Yes. That's why you bring private equity.
Not the only reason of private equity. That would be a good reason, but not to take over.
Good.
And just for leverage.
Okay, two things I want to talk about. So it sounds to me, I mean, I experience it personally, but for people who don't know you personally, that you have to be extremely sharp during the process. As Jeremy, as the person, Jeremy Hopwood has to be sharp, hear what's not being said, stick with the process while still dancing one step forward.
I'll give you an example. When I did South America project, I did a crash course in Spanish, and I was just good enough that I could understand it was 3 weeks basically, but I could understand what was going on in the meetings when they're in Spanish, because obviously I'm not going to make them meet in English. As a minority, but I could understand, and I could say to my co-conspirators, hang on a minute.
Something.
This is going. This is definitely going the wrong way.
Okay, so you have to be very sharp. I want to ask a personal question. What do you do? What practices? What do you do to keep yourself sharp?
Probably not enough.
Yeah, well, okay, fine.
I mean, look, I think.
And look, part of it's momentum because you've been doing it for so many years.
Yeah.
It's almost like a second nature. Okay.
Yes.
But
look, I mean,
athletes before
I was
they
in the
do
army,
the Tour de
right?
France.
Yeah.
But you were in the army.
But I was in the army.
I know your white hair doesn't.
No,
point
no. But I mean,
but
I was in the army in my 20s, and I did a lot of high. Running around the hills with backpacks on and sneaking around the jungle. So I've got a fundamental level of fitness and desire to stay fit and to move.
Yeah.
So even if I'm not, like right now I have a knee injury, but so I'm not running and actually not really cycling.
Are you tying physical sharpness to mental sharpness?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I asked her about mental sharpness and you answer physical.
For me, physical is the foundation.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah, but for lots of reasons, for physiological reasons, for chemical reasons, etc. For better sleep.
Mm-hmm.
So just doing things like walking 2 steps at a time.
Yeah.
Rather than taking the escalator.
Up the stairs,
that kind those kinds of things.
Okay, so one is to keep yourself sharp when you go into a project.
Yes.
One is saying, my body has to be ready for it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Make time to train. I have a friend, one of the partners in the EHS is an Ironman, and I don't know how he manages to fit it in, but he's doing a 1.5 hour swim every other day, 1.5 hour cycle ride, etc. Yeah, no, and it works for him.
What about mentally?
I don't do that, but
okay, so physically I get it. So you're saying
mentally, I think just learning new things, right? So
tell me an actual thing. What do you do to learn new things? Because
for instance, when I went back to the UK in 2017, I went on a construction training course to learn construction skills because I wanted to do some practical stuff because that was part of me that I thought that hadn't been I'd let slip. I also learned to be an electrician. I learned all the rule book of being an electrician, how electricity works, how all the regulations work.
Okay, and
so it's just different. And I learned Spanish.
Yes, exactly. That's the key. So the key is not because it's not like you specialize in construction. Consulting. You said, look, I'm going to take something I have no idea, but it might have some little interest.
Yeah.
So ongoingly, you expand your learning, like your vocabulary, or because by learning new things. Okay. Is there anything else that you do to really sharpen yourself before you take a big project on?
Well, I think,
So physically, you said
I
expanding yourself ongoingly.
Yes.
Is there another thing?
I think I would definitely drink less alcohol in the lead up. No, seriously.
No,
I mean, because as you get older, you don't process these things in the same way. I think, getting good exercise, drinking less. I love wine. We both love wine, right?
Yeah.
So, and getting good sleep. And then I do a lot of preparation because I'm making sure that I'm ahead. I need to be ahead of the game. I need to be constantly thinking. Obviously, I have the institutional knowledge in my head, but I am always thinking what's going to happen in 8 weeks that impacts the thing we're doing now.
Yeah.
That means I need to say, hey, no, let's do it this way because otherwise we're going to get ourselves into a problem.
Okay, so I think that's a key that we're gonna that you do a lot of that thinking that not being busy with stuff but actually going through the process and thinking about. Okay, very
a lot
good.
of thinking,
Right.
including analytics, which I don't do. I'm not necessarily doing it for the client, but I'm doing my own analytics on their data because I want to have a point of view that allows me to, ask questions which are valuable.
Okay. Last question. I never let a guest leave without talking about my favorite thing, which is not favorite, but the thing that occupies a substantial amount of my thinking is AI and change.
Yeah.
So in our few minutes we have left, how do you see AI not implemented, but actually impacting your field?
Yeah. Oh, our field.
Yeah, your field of consulting.
Well, I mean, we can get there. So first off, I think that we're sort of being delusional about AI. Certainly in my country, everyone's up in arms about the fact that it's not the source of truth, that you actually have to take responsibility for how you use it and how you interpret it. Because people, want to be fed nowadays, and they want to be fed in a way where there's no risk. And AI is clearly not that. I think the other thing is that most people are completely underestimating the impact it's going to have in 10 years' time. They're all focused right now on entry-level jobs, right? Oh, AI is going to take entry-level jobs. Well, it's going to take a bunch of things that people are really crap at. You know, most of the time you get customer service and you got disillusioned people who don't know what's going on. You get a better result from AI. I hope that it will allow us as human beings to focus more on human skills, things that machines can't do. And they have empathy. They can generate. I've had this experience myself. They understand intellectually empathy, but they're not capable of human emotion, human contact. So all that side of it, I hope we'll spend a lot more time getting people doing that, because that's the stuff they love doing.
Yes.
They don't want to be doing all this drudgery.
Yeah.
What a wonderful world that opens up.
And it'll be interesting to, when we have you again in a few years,
To see
I think there'll be a change in the way you do projects, not you personally, but I think that the conversation around AI and AI tools will impact substantially the companies that you're going to work with versus 5 years ago.
Well, it should at least be a huge accelerator.
Yes.
Right. But I hope it actually enables just a rethinking of what useful tasks are for humans. Because I think we're going to, in the long term, we're going to end up partnering with AI rather than AI partnering with us. But in the short term,
you're optimistic. I love that. All right. On this note, again, Jeremy, first of all, thank you. I mean, you're my dear friend, and I always love talking to you, but I have the privilege of sharing your knowledge and wisdom with others. And we could have spent 4 hours.
We could have done
exactly, but we're not. So thank you for being here. Really.
Well, thanks
awesome.
for having me. It was great.